Hello, Rob here from the Flanagan Homestead. I'm continuing to work on my campground. Today I'm building doors for my bathroom area. I've got the plumbing done, the electrical done, shower works and everything, but I don't have any doors, so I don't think anybody's going to want to go sit down on the toilet or take a shower and just let anybody walking by see. And the reason that the doors have not been done is I want to build them myself. I have the rough sawn lumber board and bat from the tree I cut down on the property, and I want to create a door that fits the theme, very rustic and whatnot. So I have some thinner rough sawn lumber from that project. I have some literally 2-inch thick boards, not 2x4 like you buy in the store, but literally 2 inches by 6 inches, and I'm going to put around the frame. I am going to put some plywood in the middle of it to give it some more support, lateral support and everything, because as you use, I've seen a lot of doors in like rustic restaurants and whatnot that have the theme, and when they build a door like that, or there's an old door like that, there's cracks that you can see through, and that's great when it's not a restroom, but if it's a restroom, people don't want cracks you can see through. So I'm going to put a piece of plywood in the middle, and then it'll be covered up. So this is how I plan to do it. As I'm getting my earplugs in here, the door opening is 80 by 80 height, 80 3/4 height by 30 inches wide. So I'm going to be building to that dimension. I'm going to take a piece of plywood, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rip it down to the length and height and width that I need to fit inside the board. I need to do that first on my table saw back there, because I will be, to make it secure, be cutting a dado cut in the trim boards or the side boards, and once I change the blade for dado cut, it's going to be hard to do the other cut. So I'm going to cut the plywood first, then put the dado cut blades on. I cut all 4 sides of this piece of plywood that's going to be the center of the door, because this is an older piece of plywood that's been sitting around, and I wanted nice, clean, smooth edges so it'll fit inside the dado, so nothing has been chipped and expanded and caused some problems. So here's the outside boards laid out on the table the way they're going to be. I chose to have the horizontal or top and bottom pieces go all the way to the end and butt the lengthwise pieces to it, because this is such a skinny door anyway that if I put the pieces on the inside here and ran the length all the way down, it'd be such a skinny piece that there wouldn't be really any horizontal design to the door. So I want this side that's up to be the outside of the door when it's on. I like the way it's laid out. I've got some knots and different colors in the grain and whatnot that I think it'll make it look nice. So I'm just going to mark the edge that I need the dado cut blade in, dado cut in, and then just kind of mark how far up the board it's going to need to go on this one, so I don't have to run it all the way out to the end. I just have to be able to get plywood in here 3/4 of an inch. Time to get the dado cut blade on the table saw. There are different types of dado blades. Mine is a stacked system, which I think is the most common, but looks like a regular saw blade you have on either side, and then you have 1/8 inch blades that fit inside, and you could just keep stacking these. There are shims if you need them to create a certain distance. There is a 1/16 blade also, so if you don't want to go to a full eighth, and you just stack what you need in there. I'm trying to stack mine so it's just over 1/2 inch, so I can get the plywood in there. Stagger the inside blades so that they're kind of perpendicular to each other before you tighten everything down. We will also be taking out the riving knife, which is in here to keep, when you make a cut, to keep the board split so it doesn't pinch in on the blade. But since we're not going to go all the way through the board, and it's going to be much thicker than the riving knife, which is normally the thickness of the blade, we need to take this out. All right, if it's going to cooperate, there we go. Couple things to consider before I start cutting. I'm going to take a scrap piece and I'm going to run it through here to test the width, and then I'm going to take it and make sure that it fits around the piece of plywood that I'm using for the center of the door. I have made some dado cuts before and cut multiple boards, and then went to fit it on the piece, and I had put not quite enough width on the dado, and then it just creates more work. The other thing that I need to be aware of is I want to get 3/4 of an inch depth, and it's 1/2 inch wide. This table saw doesn't have the biggest motor. I am going to go through it slowly, and I might have to, take off maybe a 1/3 of that depth or a 1/2 of that depth on one pass, and then raise the blade up and take another pass. Cutting it pretty easily. Let's go see how that fits on the board. That's about perfect width to fit around the board. It slides in pretty easily, but it's not loose. So we're going with this. It took out the chunks that I needed pretty easily. I didn't go super deep, but I'm going to take, I'm going to go for 3/8 depth, and then get the other 3/8 on the second pass. now before I go any further, I'm going to put the plywood inside the dado cuts and make sure that I can push all the pieces together and be the outside dimensions that I wanted for the door. All right. All right, now that we know it'll fit to dimension, that took a little bit more work than I expected. A little bit of warp in the plywood and whatnot made me work harder. But I've got my brad nailer out, hooked up to the air compressor and a bunch of glue. I'm gonna take this apart, pour glue in every dado cut, all the way around, tack it down with a brad nailer, be nice and solid. Now that the body is built and done, I'm going to, and I don't even know how I'm going to do it, I'm going to be filling in the body with probably a 1/2 inch or 3/8 thick rough sawn lumber. Some has live edge, some does not. I may put it just horizontal, I may put it at an angle. It doesn't do anything structurally. The plywood in between is structural and visual barrier. This is for just decoration. So I got to figure out what I want. Okay, here we are the next morning. Before I head to work, I'm going to go try to put the store on. I got to put some hinges on first. I have a bag here of scavenged hinges. If you ever see anyone throwing a door away, you know, it needs to go out of the way big and bulky, but take the screws out, save the hinges. If you're a project guy, you're going to use the hinges sooner or later, and they store nice and small. So your wife's not going, are we going to use those eventually? You know, you could just tuck those away, and then I'm using a bunch of scavenged hinges. I am going to just stick them in with this, not the standard screw for a door. I've got a 3-inch exterior wood screw. Normally they have a broader head to hold onto the hinge, but this will hold, and they're not quite as long, but I have a deep solid wood frame, and so I'm going to stick these 4 screws in each hinge deep into the wood, 3 inches, and this is a nice heavy door, so it's going to be nice to have long screws going in there. Got to squat here for the camera angle. Okay, so I'm now going to just put the hinges onto the framing of the structure. I know a lot of you are used to seeing the doors being built in the jamb and then putting the whole jamb in, but it's actually not terribly unusual to put doors in this way in this situation. As a matter of fact, about 30 years ago, I used to put about 20 doors a day, every day in for a company this way, where you have the hinges and then you just screw the hinges into the jamb. I will be fixing the trim and everything else. I will building that in place in a little bit. So when I used to do the other doors, now they were hollow core doors. I would just put the door on my toe, pivot it up, and then get it in place, and then put the screws in. But because this door is so heavy, let's see if we can see it here. I've kind of shimmed up to the height that I want the bottom of the door, and I'm going to pivot this up and then start putting the screws in, and hopefully it'll hold in place. Alright, I don't have all the screws in place yet, but after I have a couple in all the hinges, before I secure it, and I'm going to be building wood poles and knobs here, but we want to pull the door and make sure that it's going to close right and line up right around the edges, so this looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of the screws in, and then I got to get to work, my other work, and then I'll come back and hopefully put the latches and knobs on here to work. This is a very small bathroom, so there's not a ton of room once you swing it open to get past the toilet. That's part of the reason I wanted a small door. But you are supposed to, on rooms like this, I don't know if you don't realize this is code, to have the door swing in, because if you have a small room like this and the door and no other exit and the door swings out, someone could go in there and then someone else could just block the door quite easily, and then they can't get out. So it's a safety thing to have the door swing in, so the people inside the room are the only ones that can block the door. Here's my bathroom door with the board and bat siding. I like how it turned out. I still need to put a pole on the door, but I like the look. All right, here's my shower door hung, ready to put on the siding around it. And this is the largest of the 3 doors I built. It's the opening for the storage area. So the door's on the bathroom, and the bathroom works, and it's fine to use. I've been using the toilet, and so have some friends that have come up to pick berries up here. But one thing that I do need to finish is finish out the jamb, since I manufactured this whole thing myself. You can look right here and you can see there's light coming through on the hinge side, so there's this gap, and if someone was to stand here and look through there, you could see someone sitting on the toilet, so people don't want that. Also on the other side, there's a gap that needs to be covered, both for vision and, more importantly, if the door pushes in, but if someone's inside the bathroom and they were to push out, there's nothing to stop the door, and if they were to push on the outside edge of the door really hard, they just probably rip the hinges off or rip the screws out of there or bend the hinges. So by putting by finishing off the jamb and putting this in on the other side as well, that'll stop the door when it swings and it won't ruin the hinges.